The call that destroyed my world came on an ordinary Tuesday, just as I was finishing a meeting with important clients. "Mr. Pierce? This is Frank Santos from First National. There seems to be an irregularity with your sister's mortgage payments." I frowned, organizing some papers on my desk. "My sister's mortgage? I think you have the wrong contact. Actually, that's why I'm calling. You're listed as a co-signer on Rebecca's mortgage for the property at 1542 Maple Avenue." The pen he was holding fell on the table. "That's impossible. I've never signed anything like that. Our records show otherwise. The paperwork was processed 6 months ago. Your parents brought all the necessary paperwork." "My parents?" The room began to spin as the pieces fell into place. Their nervous behavior at Christmas. The way they changed the subject when I mentioned Rebecca's new house. Their insistence that I sign some routine documents during my mother's birthday dinner. "I need to see those documents immediately," I managed to say, my voice surprisingly steady despite the earthquake going on in my chest. "Of course I can email them to you now, but..." Frank hesitated. "There's one more thing. The payments have been overdue for 3 months." I gripped the edge of my desk. "How much?" "Just over $12,000. The figure hit me like a physical blow. I thanked him mechanically, ended the call and immediately dialed Griffin. He had been my best friend since law school, and at that moment, I needed a friend as much as I needed a lawyer. "What's up, man?" he answered cheerfully. "My family forged my signature." The words came out in torrents. "They put me on Rebecca's mortgage without telling me." "Damn." Griffin's tone instantly changed to professional mode. "Don't do anything yet. I'm going to your office." 20 minutes later, Griffin was examining the documents Frank had sent while I walked nervously behind him. "Look at this," he pointed to a signature. "They didn't even try to imitate your handwriting." I leaned over, my stomach churning. The signature was clearly my mother's attempt to copy mine. The E had that distinctive curve of hers. My phone vibrated. My mother's smiling face appeared on the screen. I showed it to Griffin. "Pick up," he murmured. "Stay calm." I took a deep breath and answered. "Hi, Mom." "Darling, are you free for dinner tonight? Your father's making that famous lasagna of his." The casual tone made my blood boil. "Actually, it's funny you should call. I just had an interesting conversation with Frank Santos." Silence, then, "Ah, son. We were going to tell you." "Tell you what?" "That you forged my signature? That you made me legally responsible for Rebecca's house without my knowledge." "It's nothing like that." My mother's voice became defensive. "Rebecca needed help and you're doing so well. The bank wouldn't have approved her loan otherwise." "So you've committed fraud?" My voice faltered. "Do you have any idea what this could do to my career?" "Don't be dramatic, Eric. We're family. Families help each other. Help themselves or help Rebecca." The words tasted bitter. "I'm coming over tonight. Make sure Rebecca's there too. We'll sort it out." "Honey, I dash." I hung up, my hands shaking. Griffin was already opening more documents on his laptop. "There are definitely grounds for legal action," he said calmly. "But are you sure you want to go down that route?" I sank into my chair, suddenly exhausted. I don't know what I want, except answers. "Then let's get them." Griffin started making notes. "But first we need to protect you. I see several red flags in these documents." "What do you mean?" He turned the screen to me. "These mortgage papers, they're just the tip of the iceberg. There's language in here suggesting other bills, other obligations. We need to find out exactly what they've linked you to." I stared at the documents, my parents' betrayal spreading like poison through every happy memory I had of them. All those family dinners, all those proud smiles when I became a partner in the firm. Were they just setting me up to be their financial safety net without my knowledge? "Griffin," my voice was barely more than a whisper, "help me burn all this to the ground." He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "We'll do better than that. We'll make sure they face every consequence they deserve, starting with dinner tonight." I nodded, anger and determination crystallizing into something cold and clear. They wanted to use my success against me? Fine. They were about to find out exactly how successful I could be at hitting back. If you're enjoying this story of family betrayal and want to know how I'm going to make my parents and sister pay for stealing my identity, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any details of my calculated revenge. Griffin's office looked like a crime scene at midnight. Documents scattered over every surface and yellow notes creating a web of connections on the whiteboard. We had skipped the family dinner. My cell phone kept vibrating with messages from my mother, father, and Rebecca, but I deliberately ignored them. We had more important work to do. Look at this, Griffin said, holding up a credit card statement. A platinum card opened in your name 3 months ago. The address is your parents' house. I took the paper, examining the charges. I never applied for this card. And these purchases, designer handbags, spa treatments, restaurant bills, this is exactly Rebecca's spending pattern. They're getting sloppy, Griffin muttered, typing furiously on his laptop. The card was opened with an online application. Wanna bet they used your social security number? A knock on the door made us jump. It was Solstice, from the firm's financial crimes division, carrying 3 cups of coffee. I thought you might need backup, she said, handing over the drinks. Griffin filled me in. This is seriously disturbing, Eric. I took a grateful sip. Can you help us track down anything else they might have opened in my name? Already on it. Solstice pulled up a chair. I have access to databases that will show all the accounts linked to your CPF, but you should probably sit down for that. My stomach sank. How bad? 3 credit cards, 2 personal loans, and, she paused. There's something strange with your investment accounts. Griffin leaned forward. Strange how? Someone's been using them as collateral for other loans. The paperwork looks legitimate at first glance, but the date stamps don't match. These documents have been antedated. My phone vibrated again. This time it was Rebecca. Please pick up. Mom is crying and Dad is furious. We need to sort this out as a family. I showed Griffin the message. Answer it, he advised. But don't reveal anything. We need to know how deep this goes before we confront them. I typed, still at work. We'll talk tomorrow. Solstice whistled softly, looking at her screen. Eric, when was the last time you checked your credit score? 6 months ago. It was above 800. It's at 642 now. The room spun slightly. Everything I had worked for, my financial reputation, my carefully constructed credit history, all damaged because my family decided to use me as their personal ATM. There's one more thing, Griffin said slowly, examining a document. These loan applications aren't just using your current income. They're listing future projections based on your career path. They're betting on your next promotion. How would they know that? I demanded to know. Because your father's golf buddy is on the firm's board, I realized, the pieces falling into place. He must have mentioned the discussions about the partnership track. Solstice began organizing the papers into piles. Well, here's what we know. They created approximately $300,000 in debt under your name. The mortgage is the biggest chunk, but these other accounts suggest they're building a safety net. My guess? Rebecca's house of cards is about to collapse, and they're preparing for it. Sacrificing myself instead, I said bitterly. Griffin picked up a new legal pad. We need to document everything tonight. Tomorrow we'll start damage control. First step is to freeze their credit and file fraud alerts. Then we challenge every account they opened without authorization. But the mortgage, I hesitated. If we do that, Rebecca could lose the house. That's not your problem, Solstice said firmly. They've made their choices. Now they'll face the consequences. My phone lit up with another message from my mother. We did this for your sister. You've always been the strong one. Please understand. The strong one. That's what they always called me, their dependable son who could handle anything. Now I understood. It wasn't a compliment. It was their justification for exploiting me. I need to know something, I said, looking at Griffin. Can we prove that they forged my signature beyond any doubt? He nodded somberly. The date stamps alone prove that you couldn't have signed those documents. You were in court for half of those application dates. Besides, we can do a handwriting analysis. Great. I stood up, suddenly energized by anger. Because tomorrow I'm not just going to freeze my credit. I'm going to make sure they never do this to anyone else. Solstice raised an eyebrow. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time to talk to Frank Santos again. If they've forged documents at his bank, he needs to know. And once he files his report, he smiled humorlessly. Well, fraud investigations tend to uncover all sorts of interesting things. Griffin began to gather the documents. Are you sure about this? Once we start, there's no going back. I looked at the text messages from my family, each one assuming that I would give in, that I would understand, that I would sacrifice myself to protect them, as I always had. I'm sure, I said. It's time they learned what Strong is really capable of. The smell of my father's lasagna filled the house when I entered without knocking. My parents and Rebecca were sitting at the dining table, a perfect family portrait except for their tense expressions. The manila envelope in my hand seemed to weigh tons with the evidence of their betrayal. Finally, my mother said, trying to sound normal, "We've saved you a plate." I dropped the envelope on the table, interrupting her. Let's skip the formalities. Here's everything I found out last night. Do you want to explain, or should I start? My father stretched out his arm to take the envelope, but I pulled it back. No, you've already gone through my documents too much. Don't take that tone with us, he retorted. We're your parents. Parents don't commit identity theft against their children. Rebecca started to cry. It wasn't supposed to be like this. The house was a good investment, I just needed help with the down payment. The house. I laughed bitterly. This goes way beyond the house, Rebecca. 3 credit cards, personal loans, using my investment accounts as collateral. My mother's face paled. How did you dash? I'm a lawyer, Mom. Did you forget that when you were forging my signature, or were you just counting on the fact that I was too nice to fight back? We did it because we love you both, my father said, his voice rising. Your sister needed help and you had the means. Conditions, I added. Funny how you never asked if I wanted to. I'll pay for everything, Rebecca sobbed. I promise. I just need time. Time. I pulled out her card statements. You spent $12,000 at Nordstrom last month, another $8,000 at that spa in Vegas. How exactly do you plan to pay for that? The silence was deafening. That's what I thought. I turned to my parents. What about you two? Using Dad's connection at my firm to get inside information about my career prospects? That's a new low. My mother stood up suddenly. You don't understand what it's like to see one daughter succeed while the other struggles. We had to balance things out. Balance things out, my voice faltered, by destroying my credit, risking my career, my license to practice law? Don't be dramatic, my father began, but I interrupted him. Dramatic? Let me tell you what's dramatic. Tomorrow morning, I have a meeting with Frank Santos. I'm going to file fraud charges on every account you've opened in my name. Then I'm going to contact the police. Rebecca's sobs turned into hiccups. You wouldn't do that. Try. Please, my mother reached for my hand, but I pulled back. We can sort this out as a family. Your sister's house isn't my problem, I turned to Rebecca. You're 3 months behind on your mortgage payments. How do you plan to resolve that? She looked down at the table. Mom and Dad said they'd help. With what money? I demanded. The credit cards in my name are maxed out. The loans are overdue. Where exactly is this help going to come from? More silence. That's what I thought. I pulled out one last document. This is a formal statement denying any knowledge or consent to these accounts. I'm registering it with all the credit bureaus and banks involved. You're going to ruin us, my father said softly. The words hit me like a slap. No, you've ruined yourselves and tried to ruin me in the process. I'm scared, Rebecca whispered. I can't lose my house. I don't know how to fix it. For a moment, looking at my little sister's tear-stained face, I hesitated. Then I remembered the methodical way they had stolen my identity. Planned their deception. Used my success against me. You should be afraid. Actions have consequences. Welcome to yours. My mother started crying then. Big, theatrical sobs that used to make me give in instantly. We are family. How can you do this to us? Family. I gathered up my papers. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't commit fraud. Family doesn't sacrifice one child to enable another's spending addiction. Eric, please, Rebecca held out her hand. I'll do anything. Just don't report it. We can sort it out somehow. I looked at them. My sobbing mother, my furious father, my desperate sister, the family that molded me, raised me and then betrayed me without hesitation. You have 24 hours, I finally said. Either you confess everything to Frank, or I'll do it for you. Either way, it ends tomorrow. I left, ignoring his calls. In my car, my phone vibrated with a message from Griffin. How did it go? I replied, they're still trying to manipulate me, but tomorrow they'll learn what happens when the strong finally stand up for themselves. Starting the engine, I caught a glimpse of them through the dining room window, huddled together, probably already planning their next move. But this time, I was 10 steps ahead, and I wasn't retreating. Solstice's office looked like a war room the next morning. Multiple screens displayed financial records while a printer worked continuously, spitting out more evidence. You're not going to believe this, she said, turning her monitor towards me. Your sister's spending isn't random. There's a pattern. I leaned over, examining the transactions. What do you mean? Look at the timing of each purchase. Every significant expense coincides with your parents' social events, dinners at the country club, charity galas, meetings with board members. She was keeping up appearances, I realized, making sure everyone thought the family was doing well. Exactly. But here's where it gets interesting. Solstice opened another screen. I found ghost accounts. Your parents have been moving money around, trying to cover their tracks. My phone vibrated. A message from my father. We're meeting Frank this afternoon. Please reconsider your position. They're trying to get ahead of us, I showed the message to Solstice. But they don't know what we've found. Speaking of discoveries, she hesitated. There's one more thing. Your sister has been applying for jobs using your credentials. What? She handed me a stack of papers. I found this in the background check databases. She's been sending out resumes with her law degree and her bar admission. Just changing her name. The room spun slightly. That's not just fraud. That could get her arrested. It gets worse, Griffin said from the doorway. I hadn't even heard him come in. I just spoke to a headhunter friend. Rebecca interviewed for 3 positions using her credentials. A company was about to make an offer. I sank into a chair. Did she really think she'd make it? People would find out eventually. By then she'd have a foot in the door and a salary history to use as leverage, commented Solstice. My phone vibrated again. It was Frank. Your parents are here. They're telling a very different story. Please come to the bank immediately. Of course they are, I muttered. They're trying to manipulate the narrative before I present the evidence. Griffin picked up his briefcase. Let's go. I've got everything we need to prove the forgeries. Wait, Solstice called, printing out another document. Take this too. It's proof that your parents accessed your investment accounts without authorization. The IP addresses were traced back to their home computer. The drive to the bank seemed surreal. Through the lobby windows, I could see my parents sitting in Frank's office, my mother wiping her eyes with a handkerchief while my father gestured emphatically. Ready? Griffin asked softly. I straightened my spine. More than ready. Frank's office fell silent as we entered. My mother's eyes widened at the sight of Griffin. This is a family matter, my father started to say. No, I interrupted. This is a criminal matter. Frank, I have proof that my parents and my sister have committed multiple frauds using my identity. Now wait just a minute. Sit down, Griffin said firmly. Unless you'd rather have this conversation at the police station. Frank looked between us, visibly uncomfortable. Your parents say they had your verbal permission. They didn't. I started laying out the documents. Here are the forged signatures. Here are the records of unauthorized access to the accounts. And here, I placed Rebecca's fake resumes on top, is the evidence of my sister committing employment fraud using my credentials. My mother burst into tears. We were desperate. Rebecca needed dash. I don't care what Rebecca needed, I replied sharply. You've committed crimes, multiple crimes, and now you have a choice. Frank picked up the forgery evidence, his face darkening as he read. This is very serious. We know, Griffin said. That's why we're giving them the chance to deal with it internally first, but if they don't, our next stop is the district attorney's office. My father's face went from red to pale. Would you send your own sister to prison? Would you steal your own son's identity? I retorted. Would you forge his signature, use his career to support your lies? Frank snorted. I'll need to report this to our fraud department and freeze all associated accounts immediately. That's not necessary, my mother began. Yes, it is, I said firmly. And here's what's going to happen next. You're going to admit everything, you're going to close all the fraudulent accounts, and you're going to face whatever consequences the bank decides. Or, my father challenged. Or I'll file criminal charges. Your choice. The silence stretched on, thick and heavy. Finally, Frank spoke. I need to make some calls. Please wait here. As he left, I stared at my parents. I could really see them. They seemed smaller somehow, their self-righteous anger collapsing into fear. You did it, my mother whispered. You destroyed our family. No, I stood up, gathering my evidence. You did it on your own. I'm just making sure you can't destroy anyone else. Back in the office, Solstice paced back and forth, her usual calm shattered. She handed me a stack of papers as soon as I entered. Your parents weren't just covering up Rebecca's expenses, she pointed to a series of transactions. They were operating a little Ponzi scheme through the country club. What kind of scheme? They were investing other members' money, promising returns from some exclusive fund, but the money was just being reallocated to pay off previous investors and fund Rebecca's lifestyle. My legs went weak. How much? Almost $2 million. And guess which investment accounts they used as proof of their success? Yours. The revelation sank in like poison. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in federal court, holding the final dossier. Every transaction, every victim, every lie meticulously documented. 2 FBI agents flanked me as we walked in. Ready for this? Asked Agent Torres softly. I've been ready for weeks. The courtroom doors opened to reveal my family sitting with their lawyers. My mother's bright pantsuit had been replaced by a discreet dress suit. My father's golf tan had faded. And Rebecca. Rebecca looked like a stranger in her austere black suit. The prosecution calls Eric Pierce, announced the prosecutor. As I walked to the witness stand, I felt their gazes burning into me. My mother murmured, "Please." As I passed, I kept my gaze fixed straight ahead. Over the next hour, I laid it all out. The forged signatures, the stolen identity, the Ponzi scheme, the offshore accounts. With each revelation, I saw their facades crumble even further. The total amount stolen exceeds $5 million, I declared. They used my reputation, my credentials, and my identity to lure victims into their scheme. The sentence came a week later. My father received 18 years in federal prison. My mother, 15 years. Rebecca, 12 years. All assets would be seized and liquidated to compensate the victims. 6 months later, I received an offer from the firm. They wanted me to lead the new victim restitution program. You're uniquely qualified, said Solstice. Who better to help people rebuild after betrayal? At a celebratory dinner with the now recovered victims, I raised my glass. To truth, justice, and the courage to fight for both. And to family, added an elderly woman, looking around the table. The kind we choose, not the kind that chooses to hurt us. Later that evening, sitting in my office, I picked up a photo from the table, the last family photo taken before everything fell apart. In it, we looked perfect, happy. But now I could see the calculation behind their smiles, the greed behind their poses. I turned the photo down. It wasn't just about justice, it was about prevention. Helping others to identify the warning signs that I missed. Turning victims into survivors. Being strong isn't about enabling bad behavior or protecting criminals. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it breaks your heart. As I looked through the files of all the people waiting for help, for hope, for healing, I knew that my true strength was just beginning. If you enjoyed this story about how I faced family betrayal with courage and determination, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Share your own experiences in the comments, because together we are stronger against those who try to abuse our trust.